last session for the DIT times HYBR partnership, where we're commemorating Youth Month. We've had an amazing last couple of sessions over this month, speaking to some titans in the ecosystem and the landscape, and I'm quite excited about today's session as well. So if you're wondering why this is pre-recorded, is because we are working through some load shedding issues here in South Africa. So we've been trying to play cat and mouse with Eskom, but we thought we'd still need to send something out so that we can learn as much as we can. So just to re-emphasize again, the DIT is a community of local founders, entrepreneurs in the technology space. We've grown to, I believe, over 200 now. It's quite exciting. We're looking for different ways in which we can equip ourselves to grow, and that's why we are partnered with HYBR to launch a series of webinars to help us understand how we can approach other markets a lot better than we currently are. So for this session, we'll just go through the opening remarks, profile overview, the chat, and then some closing remarks. I have a special guest with me today, and to introduce him, today we host Eero, Head of Business and Ecosystem Development at Ayoba. Ayoba is a free instant messaging super app used by millions across the African continent. Ayoba offers users access to music, games, digital and rich media services through channels and micro apps embedded within a single user platform. It boasts access to over 180 content channels, which range from sports, news, music and artists, health and wellness, careers, fashion and beauty, to education and travel. Eero is also an advisory board member at Founders Factory Africa, an investor and fund portfolio advisor at Launch Africa Ventures, a mentor at Startup Bootcamp, and chairman of the advisory board at UCT's GSB Solutions Space. Eero, welcome to the session. How are you, and how do you manage to wear so many cool hats and still look this young?
Thank you so much for the invitation, and it's a real privilege to have access to your how would you say, tribe association. Super excited, and it's always nice when people talk about ecosystem, because I happen to have the ecosystem word in my title, and I sometimes wonder what it means. So perhaps we can clarify that as well a little bit. But yeah, it's my boss also sometimes asks, what is it with all these side hustles? Don't you have a proper job here at Ayoba? And I'm super fortunate that these side hustles like Founders Factory, UCT, Startup Bootcamp, and Launch Africa, they are all actually really connected to my job, which is to interact and engage with startups across the continent and promote Ayoba as a platform for entrepreneurs to reach their customers. So although it looks like there's several hats, they are all the same hats with different shades, perhaps.
I love that, and I believe that's absolutely true. You found a good way to integrate a lot of the other things that you're doing, but I do believe that they're quite relevant to this conversation, and especially as Ayoba's positioned as a tool to help other solutions in Africa access their local markets at scale. So before we jump into all of those formalities, tell us briefly about your career journey and the experiences that have shaped the person that you are today.
Okay, so you might have noticed that my accent is not from this side of the world. So I'm originally from Finland, and we have two. Well, when I graduated from university, first I went to do my national military service, which we have to do everyone in Finland, but then we had another national service, which was at that time working a few years with Nokia, which was great, because at that time it was a great company and a global company, and it was actually Nokia that brought me into South Africa, as a Finnish company obviously had left during the bad old days, and then towards the mid 90s, decided it's good time to come back to South Africa and Africa in general. After coming here with Nokia, I then fell in love with South Africa and Africa in general. In 2005, came back here after spending some time in management consulting and venture capital in Europe. Came back to South Africa and worked a little bit with Ericsson with their consulting business, but then very quickly moved to MTN Group, where I stayed more than 10 years, 5 years in mergers and acquisitions, which also included corporate venture capital, and then 5 years as the GM for group strategy, and now then with Ayoba. And I guess, you know, when you were asking about those several hats, I've been super fortunate to have had the possibility to work with a lot of different people, with a lot of different companies, and now I actually had my birthday yesterday, so I just turned 50, and I thought it's a good time to start giving back a little bit. Not everybody is as fortunate, so a lot of the stuff I do now, it's also kind of half kind of doing good and giving back. So yeah, that's in brief the history.
That's all. Firstly, happy belated birthday, Eero. I would not have guessed 50. You would pass for late 30s. So what's the secret? Is it the air there in Cape Town?
Cape Town is definitely good for everyone. I love. I mean, people always talk about the whole work-life balance and stuff. And the funny thing is that although I spent 15 years in Johannesburg, I never felt unfortunate to live there. I was always happy in Joburg, but when you come to Cape Town, it's very tricky to see the point in living anywhere else. So yeah, it's I think that's the biggest secret.
No, love it.
And having fun. I mean, the other thing is that you know, everybody always asks about, you know, career advice and this and that, but I think that the most important thing is that you don't have to think of going to work every day. You have to enjoy it. You have to be passionate, and you know, if you do that kind of stuff, it's fun for everyone, and it's also much more productive. So yeah, and of course, I think also the recent lockdowns and all that have provided us all with the opportunity to spend more time at home with kids and stuff like that. I have 2 small kids. I was a bit of a late starter in that respect as well. So it's great to still be able to play around with small kids.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So Eero, you mentioned, you know, your journey and all of these different roles you took on that led you to this point where you are now head of business and ecosystem development at Ayoba. So tell us about the Ayoba app, the problem or the gap it's solving, and the unique insights that you believe resulted in the creation of the super app.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we need to take a little step back and start from the days I was still at MTN, and obviously MTN, as any other telco 10 years ago, was worried about, you know, voice revenue going down and data revenue starting to go down, and you know, I think the buzzword was finding adjacencies where their telcos could go, and obviously there are lots of those adjacencies, and telcos in general have a lot of stuff that startups need as well. So I mean, if you have 300 million customers and Africa's best brand, etc., it should be quite easy to come up with new ideas how to leverage those, and it is. The problem is the execution, and I think in the last 10-15 years we tried to like do new stuff, but we often thought, okay, because we have lots of customers and we have local presence and this and that, how do we leverage that to come up with new businesses? We did that, and we came up with ideas, but then the operating model was always the problem. So we tried to do joint ventures, do things in-house, or do investments. Never really worked either. So then, about 3 years ago, we said, okay, let's as MTN do one more try at how do we solve this dilemma. The first one was that we set up a separate legal entity with own brand, own governance model, own board, which is Ayoba. And the second one was that instead of looking at what to leverage, we actually did what we should have done the first time and look at what is needed, what are the problems, and then we started listing. Okay, what's the biggest problem? Cost of data, and people stealing data and whatever. So that's one. I think we did some research, and 95% of African mobile users run out of data or airtime 2 to 3 times a week, which means that immediately they are cut out of everything. Whether it's messaging, you can't even send an SMS or WhatsApp or whatever. The only thing you can do is send a please call me message, and even that has kind of, I don't know how many people reply to those anymore. So it's the cost of data and access to internet, which is kind of a human right. The other one is that although people are now moving on to smartphones on the continent, the smartphones that people use are mostly very low spec, so very low memory, inefficient processors, which means often that when a person wants to download a new app, it means he or she needs to delete first something else on the phone, which is horrible. So we thought, okay, that's an issue we could actually solve by having an app that does a lot of things. So you don't need to have one app for everyone. Then there were other things such as the lack of local content in local languages. So if you want to, and by content I mean editorials, news, but also music, movies, whatever. It's very easy to find Michael Jackson, even if you're sitting in Kampala, but try searching for a local music artist in Swahili, it's already much more difficult. And the thing gets much worse when you go to Benin or into rural Nigeria. So all these things we kind of said, okay, is there a way to address this? And we came up, okay, let's do it. Let's make sure that it's free, that even if you don't have data, you can use it. And let's make sure we have local languages, we have local content, and we utilize the phone capabilities properly and make everything accessible. So that was the starting point, really.
Sure, those are interesting insights. I think we know broadly, or at least looking at macro trends, that access to the internet or digital services is an issue. But the nuance you bring around, the quality of devices out there and how quickly people run out of data are quite interesting, which is probably a good insight for us to take note of as people who create solutions for the broader market, to say, okay, how do you integrate into the boundaries or the ecosystem, the micro ecosystem of the users around, like you're saying, data usage, quality of devices, and the language barriers, the digital literacy levels. So I love that. I mean, I'd imagine coming out of the MTN, somewhat their ecosystem now, you're backed by MTN, but you're not necessarily inside of MTN. Is that correct?
No, we are definitely outside MTN. So, like I said, we are, MTN is a shareholder, and a very good one at that, and we are very grateful. I mean, it definitely gives us certain great benefits or let's say unfair advantages, although it does bring its hooks as well. So yes, we are fully independent, but MTN is a big partner. But Ayoba, anyone can use Ayoba. It's totally OTT. So whether you're on Cell C or Orange or Airtel, everybody can use it. The only thing is that if you happen to have an MTN SIM card, then depending on the market, you get 1 gigabyte or 5 gigabytes per data per month to use on Ayoba, so that you can keep in touch and with the loved ones and with music and games, etc.
Okay, no, that's clear. So, how old is Ayoba now?
So we had our third birthday a couple of months ago. So we are 3 years old. I guess the first year was really more like an MVP POC. Then year 21 was obviously lockdown and stuff, and it's been quite a challenge. For example, to build basically a company during COVID. I think I could try to write a book about how to create a culture for a startup when I think we are about 70 people at Ayoba, and I have probably physically only met half of them.
Wow.
Still, so it's tricky. So Ayoba is 3 years old, and obviously when we started it started very much on the messaging side, and then we've been starting adding features and verticals. So we have the channel feature there with basically, which is a broadcasting service for businesses or individuals. We have games. I think we got a couple of 100 games we can play, and then there's the music vertical, which of course around the continent is a very very important and part of the culture and life, and also the music part is interesting because we've been talking about perhaps the tech ecosystem in South Africa, but there's a music ecosystem in Africa, and there's a great many artists and talented artists who there's no way for them to monetize, for example. The main distribution is selling memory sticks or USB sticks at the traffic lights. Not getting those, but obviously the micro app feature, which is probably the most relevant for developers and startup, that is it's been live just over a year. We've been working on it, getting it better and better, and I think now it's in a phase where we're really gonna ramp up the partner network to allow for everyone to come on the platform.
Yeah,
and perhaps I should just mention. I think we've been almost on a linear kind of growth curve. So I think the first year we ended with 5 million. Last year we ended with 10 million users, and actually it's not linear, it's actually exponential, because this year we're probably going to end up with around 20 monthly active users across the continent.
Sheesh, that's amazing. I know when you touch on micro apps, this is something you and I spoke briefly about offline around how do we leverage that platform to build solutions for like you're saying your monthly active users. So I thought I'd found the gem because I read something recently that said Ayoba had managed to reach over 11.6 million monthly active users. So you're saying you'll probably end up at just over 20 million monthly active users is quite amazing. So can you share a bit about those demographics of the user base? So across the different verticals, what are the trends that you're seeing, and particularly as it relates to micro apps, like what do you believe would be some of the the interesting things to start building out and solutioning for that market?
Okay, those were lots of questions. I might not remember all of them, so let's start with the demographics and the usage. So so we are around the 15 million mark at the moment. Our both focus area is kind of first time smartphone users, young people, who are probably, I guess we call, whether I don't like the term bottom of the pyramid, I think it's the mass market rather. So that's at the moment our kind of key focus area. So let's say from young to the 30, 40. I think slightly more male dominated at the moment than female. Depending on the market, like I said, in some markets we have MTN users quite a lot. In some markets we have more non-MTN users than MTN users. And of the verticals, the number one is obviously the messaging function. But then both the channels and the music are very popular. Again, it depends a little bit on the market. So, for example, in West Africa, the music stuff is very popular, whereas in South Africa, the micro apps are a little bit more popular than that. Games are gaining in popularity very rapidly. Also, I mean, it's obviously we haven't done much marketing around those things, and we are still playing and developing. We're releasing two or three versions probably per month at the moment. So for example, we did a UI change, putting games on the front page of the app, and suddenly, obviously, the gaming penetration usage grew overnight. Wow. On the micro app feature, that's actually hidden behind a couple of clicks at the moment still, and it's on purpose because it has been a bit of a proof of concept, and we are now starting to focus a lot on that. So we'll probably see another UI change to bring those either micro apps or, let's say, marketplaces, etc., on the e-commerce side on the front. And who knows? I mean, perhaps in the coming months we might, for you, if we notice that you're very much into gaming, perhaps when you open Ayoba, you'll open the gaming page, whereas if I like to order food, I get straight to the food delivery business side of things. And then I think, if I remember correctly, you were asking about what are the focus areas on the micro apps.
So just keen to understand, from the demographics you've mentioned, from the trends you're seeing, what do you think would be interesting to build out from the micro apps angle?
Okay, so I did an exercise. So obviously, when we started the micro app, so micro apps are basically HTML5/PWA, progressive web apps. So, for example, if you have already a .mobi site, or let's say mobile-friendly site that you've developed, we can put it on Ayoba as a micro app almost out of the box. You don't need to develop an app because it's a web service, right? So some web services or sites, it takes 5 minutes and they're up and running. Some are much more tricky, and but it really depends on that. But when we made the functionality available for developers, and we didn't have any guidelines. We are a platform, so we said, come do whatever you want. let's see what starts working. So if you look at me, if you ask me what does the teenage girl in Accra want to do, I'm probably not the right person to answer. So
Yeah.
I thought that the good strategy would be to try things out and then be a data-driven company, and then perhaps start guiding developers and startups into these are the best practices. This is what you should perhaps do. And then at the same time we've been kind of like thinking of on how do we get the big brands, like how do we get Airbnb on Ayoba and stuff like that. And it's only probably then in the last 6 months or so when we realized that, hey, if you or me, I don't know, you're based in Joburg,
Yeah.
and I'm in Cape Town, but like if you want to get a ride, you probably have Uber on your phone, right?
Yeah.
And you can drive to home in Santon and there's no problem. Or you can get your new TV from Takealot and they will deliver it to your house, right? And you can pay it with your credit card. But now, I don't know, 80% of South Africans and 99% of the people on the continent don't have access to that. So all the Airbnbs and Takealots and whatnot, they work perfectly for Santon and Clifton and Camps Bay, but for Philippi and Mitchell's Plain and Langa, people don't have those services. They don't have the capable devices, but also your Uber doesn't drive to the township, right?
Yeah.
Or your Woolies Dash don't drive to the township. And even if they do, they perhaps only accept payment with a credit card, which people don't do. So when I started looking at different businesses, it was like, okay, let's leave the developed world apps and services. They're already there and people use them. But let's us concentrate on casinomics and how to digitize casinomics. So at the moment, just before this, I was on a call with a guy from a company called Cloudy Deliveries. They do. They have about 20 bicycles and they do last mile deliveries in Langa. So basically, it's an Uber Eats, but for Langa. And we are developing a micro app so that their customers can access and do orders without airtime, and the whole system will actually enable services that we all have in Langa going forward. Yeah, and then the other thing is what we really want is we're trying, of course, to whatever services we offer, that they are affordable. So if you think of Ayoba, it's like a mall. It's like the mall operator. So what we've done is we built the mall, and there's escalators, and there's a parking lot, and there's security. But I start selling things on our platform, and we are now working very hard on building what we call digital templates for people that they can come in, they can in 5 minutes get a web page, an app running on Ayoba, start selling stuff, having a payment integration, and we can even work together with local delivery companies to help with the logistics and all that. So it's a bit of a long answer, but I would, if I need to say it, it's any business that exists elsewhere, but it's not in the kind of the emerging economies, and yeah, that's really it.
No, I love that, and I think you raise a very interesting issue around some of the services, products, solutions that exist in the developed markets and in South Africa. We kind of bounce in between, a developed market and a developing market. So you do have, like you said, your Ubers, your Airbnbs, and so on. But for the majority of the country and the continent at large, they can't access those services. So, yeah, what we see
and
from
the Airbnb, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, the Airbnb example is wonderful. So the, what do you call it, backyard?
Yeah, the backyarding. Yeah.
That's big business, right?
That's big
And
business.
if you have, I mean, basically it's an Airbnb business, right? So you could take the Airbnb backend or any other backend and offer that service for them. And that's what we're gonna do, because no one else is interested in doing it. But I mean, that's a multi-million billion business around not only South Africa again, but around the continent. So someone has to do it, right?
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
And by the way, to all, if anyone is listening, what we as Ayoba, so we have the platform, but what we're really looking is, we're not even looking for the ideas. We're looking for people who can run these businesses, and then on the other one, like, we're looking for founders, and then we're looking for developers to develop those services on Ayoba. And those, of course, can be the same person if one is lucky. That's really where we're gonna do it. Whether it's in Langa or whether it's in Joburg, in Alex, or in Durban. Let's just get, you guys just keep in touch with me, and there's some interesting stuff we can do.
Love it. So how do our community members, our founders and entrepreneurs reach out to Ayoba? How do they get their platforms on the micro app section?
Very, very good. I guess I could write on the comment side, I imagine, or somehow. So we have a developer portal. The address is developer.ayoba.me, and basically that's a website where developers can find all the API descriptions, all the technical documentation, the do's and don't, the frequently asked questions. There's also, once you register on the portal, there's a step-by-step guide on how to publish a micro app, and you can also download the developer APK version of our app, which is then easy for testing purposes, etc. So I think the developer portal is definitely the one key place to go, but then it's I can also make my email. So my email is eero@ayoba.me, and that can be shared. And obviously, people can just get in touch via LinkedIn or stuff. So any ideas that you want to do, we're open to collaboration, and we're gonna be driving these programs this year and next year a lot.
Love it.
Well, by the way, we also, if interested, we do. We support. We're talking about doing good and giving back to the community. What we're doing also is slightly that and slightly selfish. So, for example, we run in Philippi, here in Cape Town, we run developer programs, basically 3-month full-time courses for people from around Philippi and Kailicha. No prior expertise required, just the willingness to learn to code, and basically we're giving them a 3-month crash course on coding, especially focusing on coding for Ayoba. But I mean, it's coding is coding, so and then helping them to get employment after that. And then we also have an incubation program that we run with UCT, which is the E-Track program. So if you have guys who either have a good idea but not perhaps lack the business side of business, it's sometimes a good idea to come and go through a bit of a accelerator program for developers to get the business side sorted as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'd be keen, I know for sure, as the DIT to contribute to those initiatives, because we know that we all benefit when we see solutions for the broader market. Cool. So one last question, and this one I'm sneaking in. Now, you've had quite a broad range of exposure. You've been fortunate to see trends in different African markets. So for founders either in South Africa looking to go into Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, wherever else, or from Nigeria looking to go into the rest of the continent, what would your advice and your thoughts around thinking about expansion and into other African markets?
Yeah, it's the eternal question, I guess. Most people always ask, and I think I would start from the issue or the topic you mentioned earlier about South Africa is a bit schizophrenic. So you have the guys who have and the guys who don't. And if the startup is serving the people in South Africa who have, then expanding to Africa is probably doesn't make sense. If the service is something that applies to the don't have, then it most definitely makes sense. And obviously this is, oversimplifying things, but I'm just giving you examples. Like I get quite a few pitches every day that I have to go through, and it's normally quite fun. But a lot of them are from people who have perhaps visited US or Europe or China, and then come up with a nice idea and start developing it for South Africa or for Africa. And the first thing is that they all think, we'll use the same economics as we use in other countries. But unfortunately, for example, if you are going to do ad-funded products, you need to divide the revenue per user by a factor of 10 at least to get into the African economics, and that's very tricky, because then your margins basically disappear. Now, there's another way, and what people then often do is when they realize that they can't do the subscription model or whatnot, and then they start saying, okay, but let's monetize data. And again, then at that time, a lot of people have not built their product or their backend in a way that allows for pivoting the revenue model. So that's okay. And then, if you go into Africa, it's, again, I don't know, is it 70 countries? And they are totally different. Nigeria is next to Ghana, and they both speak English, and they're West African, and they are like night and day, the operating environment. It's just, it's very, very, very tricky. And I don't need to go into the issues with every country having a regulator with interesting initiatives sometimes, and every there's always issues around how do you move money around the continent, how do you get money out, how do you set it up legally. All those things are actually extremely important, and they need to be done with the help of a proper professional, because otherwise people might end up in big trouble going forward.
No, okay, no, I like that. I like that, Eero. So yes, to your point exactly. With I believe it's around 54 countries in Africa with different legal systems. Different nuances on the ground. Yeah, I think it's quite important to understand, or at least commit to understanding those unique nuances on the ground. But
perhaps on the positive side, the good thing is that the Americans and the Europeans, they look at Wikipedia or CIA Factbook, and then they say, the GDP per pop is, I don't know, $250 in country X. And they say, doesn't make any sense. We can't make money there. There's no money. But the thing is that the statistics just don't capture majority of economics in African countries. So,
Yes.
I mean, there is money. Don't believe in stats. Go there and check yourself. I mean, when MTN wanted to go to Nigeria to build a mobile network and went around to the banks to say, would you borrow us a few $100 million to get the license and build a network, they were all laughing. They were like, are you totally nuts? Like, what are you doing in Nigeria? There's no money there. And it seemed that it was a good idea. The banks who did give MTN money did them back, got them back with interest for sure. And also, I mean, I think there's this kind of the same attributes that apply to doing business in South Africa, I mean, or any country. You know, you can't give up. You need to try to find help from whoever you can, who understand the local markets and etc. etc. But yeah, it's tricky. That's all I guess. It is tricky, but it's rewarding.
Yeah, no, I love it. The opportunity is there nonetheless. It's like you said, it's tricky but rewarding. Eero, thank you so much for affording us your time. Like I said, as a DIT, and I'm sure as HYBR as well, we're always looking for opportunities to contribute to all of these different initiatives that in the end will raise the tide for everyone, and all boats will rise alongside the tide. So for this session, that's it. We hope that you enjoy the recording. Once again, Eero, thank you so much. Do you have any outro, any last thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Well, perhaps because our slight hassle whether this was live or not live and whether I should present or not, I'd love your members to have a look at the presentation I shared and then get back to me, and I'd love to have a chat and perhaps we can have another session, because I think your membership are exactly the people we want to talk to. So yeah, that if you have a look at the document, gives a little bit more overview of the services and the opportunities that we provide for founders and entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Thank you, Eero. Well, there you have it, guys. Ayoba wants to speak to the DIT members. We believe that a very good working relationship can come from that. So from myself, from Eero, and from HYBR, thank you so much for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day, morning, evening, whenever you catch this.
Thank you.